What's up? Welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. This is my 2 cents segment of the week where I give you my reaction to the biggest topics in sports. And I normally record these on Tuesdays. So following a Monday night game like that, I had to talk about the Raiders to start. We'll get into a couple other games as well. Plus, I want to talk about Max Scherzer in a couple minutes. But I did want to get to – I didn't even think I was going to talk about the Raider game. I thought the score was 17-10, kind of late in the game. I was like, this game sucks. I'm not going to bother. And then a real game started to happen in the fourth quarter and overtime. It was insane. Just want to run through a couple of the things I saw with the Raiders and Ravens games. So those of you that did see, the Raiders beat the Ravens. And it was all basically late game craziness. Derek Carr had a huge game, 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was his 22nd fourth quarter comeback, most among active players other than Matthew Stafford, and I think the most since 2014 for Carr. So the guy can make it happen when the game is on the line, especially when trailing. It was just a wacky finish toward the end. Especially one big play was when Gruden called the offense off the field after first down. Right, we're going to kick this right away. And then everything's unorganized. They try to get the kicker on the field. He's still practicing in the net. They can't even find the kicker. So they take a delay of game. Then they bring the offense back on the field. And then Carr throws the 31-yard bomb to Zay Jones. And then the Raiders win. It was just a wild, wacky game. The Raiders had 10 penalties on Monday night. 8 of them were on offense. I mean, the play they had deep to the guy Edwards, who caught it and made it to almost the goal line or the half-yard line, and then they called it back. It wasn't a touchdown, so they celebrated, get everybody off the field, and then the offensive lineman Leatherwood, I believe his name was, he gets a penalty on the half-yard line. They have to back it up and kick a field. It was a mess for the Raiders. However, they still won. It was pretty impressive by them to still hang on. It was so Raider-like for them to lose that game. And Lamar Jackson had 3 fumbles, and one of them led to the game winner. It was just a wacky game, I have to say. Funny to hear John Gruden. He always has good stuff to say at the presser. And if I can do my best John Gruden impression, I'll tell you what, man. I feel like a cat that has multiple lives, man. That's what football is all about. But we won that game. I've been working on my Gruden. So we'll see what happens with the Raiders at moving forward. You know, I don't know if they're going to be good long term. I think it's going to be a tough road for them ahead, but we'll see how they do. They get the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, so maybe the hype will die down before then. We'll see with the Ravens. They're a good football team. They had a couple guys out. I don't have much to say yet on them. Lamar Jackson's still good. They still got a good team. I think the Ravens will be fine down the road. From one new stadium to another, how about the Rams, especially at the brand new SoFi Stadium? And they got all the fans in there this year, totally different atmosphere. But what a difference one quarterback can make for an offense. Jared Goff, as most of you probably know, is very limited, right? Everything's got to be perfect for him in the pocket. He's got all the blocking right. The route's got to be perfect. He can only throw it in certain areas. Matthew Stafford is more of a gunslinger, and that guy can make all the throws. Different arm angles, you name it, he can do it. And you can just tell with Sean McVay how giddy he is at the press conference, talking about, well, I don't want to get too excited here, but it was just, you can just tell there's a different buzz about this offense. So I think Matthew Stafford showed the world, like, damn, this guy is really good. He's just been hiding in Detroit for the whole, 12 years. And you wonder, what the hell's Detroit been doing? I know he had Calvin Johnson, but didn't really build a team around him. So I'm not even a Rams fan. I watch them. I root for them now. But it was cool to see a real presence in Los Angeles, not only with the Chargers, but, of course, the Rams. And this is mostly a Raider town. But to see the Rams look like a Super Bowl contender offensively and defensively, they're going to be really tough to beat. I think they're going to be very good down the road. So we'll see what happens to the Rams. Other notes I had were on the Bears. I'm not sure how long you can play this game with Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I think they're trying to ease Justin Fields in, the quarterback they drafted number 10 overall, which was the steal of the draft, by the way, out of Ohio State. The Bears traded up to get him. Huge move by them to get Justin Fields. And other rookie quarterbacks are already playing, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and they're in different situations, right? Every organization has a different situation. So I do think Justin Fields will take over by week 4, 5, or 6, probably, because Matt Nagy, the coach, his job is tied to Justin Fields. Even if they lose this year more than they win, I think you can kind of give yourself a little more time. There's a little more leash there. Oh, well, I got a rookie quarterback, so give me time to develop him. But if you keep putting Andy Dalton out there, and I know he was decent for a while in Cincinnati, but he ain't it. Let's just call it what it is. Andy Dalton isn't the guy. And it's kind of a discouraging offense. Other than David Montgomery, that guy looked good. And that's against the Rams defense too. He ran for over 100 yards. So good game for David Montgomery, but Andy Dalton could barely throw the ball down the field, missing guys. And I know the Rams defense is tough. Let me tell you, like, you got Aaron Donald in your face all day long. Not easy. Plus Jalen Ramsey out there, and the Rams are for real. So I'm not going to judge Andy Dalton and the Bears completely on that game, but you can just tell, like, the offense looks dead. It just does. They didn't look like a contending team with a defense that's pretty good. They got some big names on the defense, but obviously, Stafford threw 250+ yard touchdowns against them. So maybe the Rams are that good and the Bears aren't that bad. I'm not sure exactly, but I will say this needs to be the Justin Fields show sooner than later. They threw him out there. He did score like a little read option, kind of a QB. What do they call him? Like a RBO run or RPO, run pass option. And Fields ran one in at the goal line, but I think you got to move on from Andy Dalton and see what this kid's got and just throw him out there. Why not? There's a lot of stuff that happened in college football the weekend. I want to transition to that. The big news was, of course, Clay Helton getting fired from USC. I don't understand why it took them so long to do this. And you wait, you give him 2 games to quote unquote prove himself this year? Why? You wasted a whole offseason of recruiting and getting another coach in there to change the culture. I don't know what USC is doing. This was the right move, long overdue. He's got a good record on paper if you look at what he's done since in the last 8 years. However, a lot of it was when Sam Darnold was there in the first few years, and he really hasn't gotten the quarterback completely right yet. They are not a title contender, not a national contender as far as college football goes. I don't know what the plan is. They need to take their time with this one because, as many people will tell you, it's LA. You need to make a splash. You need the next Pete Carroll, which they haven't been able to find. Getting these small-time, small school guys trying to make a name for themselves in LA, there aren't that many of them that just shoot up and become a star. We need to attract a star here for USC. I'm not even a USC fan. I'm actually a UCLA fan. Grew up that way. But and it's great. And how annoying is it for SC to watch UCLA beat LSU and Oregon go to Ohio State and beat them at their house too? USC is not in the picture for those kind of big-time wins. They're just not. They don't have the talent. All the big-time quarterbacks, a lot of them in the last couple of years, are going to the SEC. They're not even staying local, or they're going to Oregon. So USC needs to find a big-name guy that can recruit and really bring USC back to dominance like they used to be. It's not that easy, but they have to go get that guy now. In a similar situation, you look at Texas. I know Steve Sarkisian, former USC coach and former Alabama assistant with Nick Saban, is now the coach for Texas. So you got to give everybody a couple of years to get it right. But the 2 most delusional fan bases in college football are Texas fans and USC fans. Both. It was only 15 years ago when Vince Young was going against the Trojans and that crazy defense that they had, and Reggie Bush and all those guys and Matt Leinart. That was 15 years ago. Those 2 programs have fallen pretty far from where they were in that era. I know it's going to take Sark a little bit to get Texas on the rise here, but those 2 programs they're just not who people think they should be. I think they're lost. They're delusional. And if Texas is they got crushed by Arkansas, not an SEC powerhouse, at least not recently. Texas is going to go to the SEC soon and join that conference. You better figure that out, because if you get crushed by Arkansas, what's going to happen when you play Auburn and Alabama and Georgia and all the other big schools? And if Florida figures it out, Texas needs to bring their game up so they can match that conference's competition level. So we'll see what happens to those 2 programs, but they're both not really headed in the right direction at the moment. Texas more so than USC, but USC's got to completely start over and get the guy. That's what they have to do. Last thing I'll mention on this before we move forward to the interview here today. In case you missed it, a little baseball news. Max Scherzer eclipsed 3,000 strikeouts in his career over the weekend, and he's only the 19th pitcher in history to do that. He is unbelievable. Just watching him since he got traded from Washington to the Dodgers. Let me give you some numbers here. He's 6-0 with an ERA of 0.88. Let me repeat that. ERA of 0.88, less than 1 run per 9 innings. He's thrown 51 innings and he struck out 72 hitters. And he has a whip, which, by the way, if you don't know what whip is, WHIP, walks and hits per innings pitched. A good whip is around 1, a really good whip. His is 0.66. That's almost a half a hit or walk per innings pitch. Basically, ridiculous, unheard of numbers. That's how little he's giving up since coming over to the Dodgers. He could win the Cy Young based off of the last month he had. Probably won't, but he's definitely in the conversation. And now, as far as the Dodgers go, with Kershaw coming back the last couple of days, and you got Urias, who's been dominant, and you got Buehler, who's been great, plus Scherzer, those 4 dudes, probably better than any other 4 you could throw out there in the big leagues right now. Playoff picture for the Dodgers. Obviously, the Giants just clinched. I know that. Yippee, woo for the Giants. And they've been great all year. They deserve it. But the Dodgers still have a legitimate chance to be World Series champions and repeat the 2020 performance that they had last year, just with a guy like Scherzer. And it's amazing what they've been able to do. Since the whole Bauer scandal, the Dodgers acted quickly. They got Trey Turner. And look at Scherzer going crazy for the Dodgers right now. He's been special since he got traded. So that's my 2 cents this week. Hope you enjoyed the games and everything. I'm also, this reminder, Tuesday nights, I'm going to start my radio show. It's going to be similar to 2 cents. And then I'm going to have it interactive with questions and comments. I can bring people on the hot seat and talk to me. And it's, 30 minutes or more, depending on how the show flow is going. No more than 45 minutes. Try to keep it short. But a little fun radio show I got with Colorcast. So you got to go to the Colorcast app. You might have to sign up, but you can also just find the show. It's called Too Tall Sports, not Too Tall Sports Podcast, but it's called Too Tall Sports. So find that 7:30 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday night. You can find me on there. I'm going to do a little radio show, kind of like this 2 cent segment, but also more interactive on the Colorcast app. It's one word, Colorcast. Just search for the Too Tall Sports show. And it's 7:30 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night. Just click on the tile. You can listen and then check it out. It'll be fun. So anyway, check me out Tuesday nights. But as far as my 2 cents goes, that's my 2 cents on the week of sports. And now I will turn you over to my interview with Darryll Stinson. Ladies and gentlemen, football is back, NFL and college, and all of your NBA and NHL and playoff baseball needs over the next few months. And the Too Tall Sports Podcast is proudly brought to you by Vegas Sports Advantage. VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Use my promo code TOOTALL to get 25% off all of their texting packages. So what that means is they are going to text you right before a slate of games will start. Let's say for football Sunday, the games usually start, the first round starts at 10 a.m. They'll text you at about 9:50, 9:55. You got to be ready on your computer or on your app, wherever you bet your games, whichever sports book or sporting bets website you use your own. This is just a service that's going to text you their top picks based on the algorithm that they have set up. They wait till all the big sharp money comes in, and then they give you their best bet or two right before the games start at different times of the day. So they do text you the picks. You take care of them on your own and bet however much you want. They usually recommend 1 or 2 units of your normal, $50, $100, whatever you like to bet. Use your own judgment on that. However, VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Use my promo code TOOTALL. That's TOOTALL for 25% off all of the packages that they give you. They'll text you the picks. You get a certain number of picks, and then it'll run out, and you can use my promo code again if you want to. But 25% off. They're awesome. I use them. I make money off of them all the time. I use my own sports book that I've chosen to put my bets on. But Vegas Sports Advantage is legit. They use their algorithms. Check them out. VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Promo code TOOTALL. Welcome back to another edition of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Glad to have you in. This is a really cool interview I have today with Darryll Stinson. He's a public speaker. He's an author of a book called Who Am I After Sports? He's a suicide survivor as well, which is really scary, but he gets through it and tells you all of his stories about what contributed to that, how he basically faked it until he made it with his friends and all these random people in his life, and came out of one of the worst mental states you could possibly be in. And he became the founder of this company called Second Chance Athletes. Crazy story. He and I have a great interview. He went to Central Michigan, played football there with Antonio Brown and all kinds of other guys, and just a lot of life lessons and really good quotes and mantras to live by. He drops a lot of knowledge on us today. So my thanks to Darryll Stinson. You can find him at secondchanceathletes.com. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. By the way, if you are on TikTok, I know it's weird and I'm old to be on there, but I am blowing up on TikTok. You guys need to get on there with me. Check out my stuff. I got some good videos about worst minor league stadiums I played in, and it's a lot of fun. So getting a lot of interaction there. So check out my TikTok. It's also Too Tall Sports Podcast. I make it easy. All of the places you can find me. But on Instagram, I do share more content there as well. A lot of the similar videos there, and I'm very interactive there as well. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. On YouTube, check me out. I'm starting to do a little more short form content as well, just posting my 2 cents by itself. You can check those out, or you can check out the full interview, of course, if you guys like the long form content. And I love my podcast listeners. So thank you guys for listening and subscribing. We drop episodes on YouTube every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So you can check it out there. Like I said, subscribe, share, leave a like, leave a comment, anything you can do to help the show grow. That'd be awesome. On the audio side, we're on Apple Podcasts. If you're new, please find us, Too Tall Sports Podcast. Just scroll all the way down if you could. It takes 2 seconds. Find those 5 stars. If you think we're 5-star worthy, hit us with a 5-star. That'd be a lot of, very appreciated. It'd be a lot of fun for you to do that. Fun for everyone. We're also on Spotify. You can listen there. We're on Pandora. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Google Play. Wherever you get your podcast, we're there. So check us out. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. And with that, I will give you my very good interview with Darryll Stinson. Too tall.
We had a pond. Going crazy.
All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is the author of the book, Who Am I After Sports? He is a public speaker with many keynote speeches, including a few really good TED Talks. He is a suicide survivor turned entrepreneur and coach, and the founder of secondchanceathletes.com. He also played college football at Central Michigan. We are lucky enough to be joined by Darryll Stinson. What's going on, Darryll?
What's poppin'? Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun today.
Definitely, man. Glad to have you. Glad I could finally track you down. I know it's tough to get you on the schedule, man. You're a busy man.
You know what? Effective, man. I don't like the word busy because it carries a negative energy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you ever talk to somebody? Oh, I'm busy. I'm busy. And they never say it as if like I'm busy doing good. They always are like, oh, like I shouldn't be this busy. And I'm like, no, I'm as busy as I should be right now.
Okay. I like that.
And so, yes, I am busy, but I'm glad we can make it work, man. It's going to be fun.
Definitely. And just for reference, Darryll and I met through a sports networking group called The Locker Room, set up by Tim Claiborne. So shout out to him. But it was kind of cool during the pandemic. Nothing was going on. And a bunch of us former athletes kind of got together and were meeting. So, and I'm sure you made some connections off of that as well.
Oh, yeah. A lot of connections that I'm like, where have y'all been my entire life? So. Seriously,
man, it's helped out a lot. And me being a new podcaster, I've gotten a lot of guests off of there and happy to get your story as well. So we'll dive into all of Darryll's story and stuff like that. But I did want to ask you just kind of in the last year or two in the pandemic, what's it been like for you, your business, and mentally, how have you handled it? You know, what's that been like for you?
All right, I'm going to give you a noise. Let me know if it gets too loud.
That is an acceptable answer.
I'm sorry if anyone's driving that was annoying to you, right, but I mean, that's what it's been, man. I mean, you think about the fact that I released a book for transition when, for the first time in the history of sports, the Olympics were postponed due to a health issue. and it's such a need. And you had MLB cutting rounds of drafts, and you had teams literally not playing. And here I am sitting on what I believe is a powerful part of the solution. So there's that going on in my life. I'm losing speaking income like crazy because everything's postponing and canceling. And then I'm pivoting virtually, but I'm having a ton in virtual production, curriculum, equipment, etc., while still being a community leader and not freaking out publicly.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you add in the racial tension, and I've got I'm in an interracial marriage, and I'm a pastor as well. And so I'm doing media interviews on offering my perspective on what's going on in the racial climate in our country.
Sure.
And so there's that aspect of it too. And again, man, this is what leaders are made for. This is what we are made for. But that's why I screamed. But inevitably we persevered, man. We were vulnerable. We failed a lot. We asked a lot of questions. We had some light. Some people tremendously help us along the way. We've got PPP loans, excuse me, and just camaraderie and partnerships that have helped us to still overcome that, and then be in a better position. Whether you consider we're still in pandemic or post-pandemic, we're in a better position now than we were before the pandemic hit, is my point.
Sure.
And so great. That's the good news.
One more thing on the pandemic. I heard you on another podcast talk about how you noticed your wife was actually depressed during the pandemic. And you had a great quote that I really liked from that portion of what you're going through. Is you said, how you see yourself determines how you show up in life. So kind of tell us about that. You don't have to go into too much detail, I guess, about what you were going through with your wife per se, but what do you mean by that quote?
Yeah. And so oftentimes we blame other people for the way we feel about ourselves. Right. And the example that I use all the time is I tell people this. If I were to come up to you and I would say, Brett, dude, you're an eagle. You're an eagle, right? You'd be like, what are you talking about? You wouldn't get offended. You might be confused. You might be like, this guy's weird. I don't know why he thinks I'm an eagle. I'm clearly a human being, clearly a man. You'd be so confused by that, right? Because you don't see yourself as an eagle. But if I were to come up to you and I'm making this up. I don't really feel this way.
Sure.
I did this in person. I almost made somebody cry. I'm like, no, that's not the point. But if I were to come up to you and I say, man, you're awkwardly tall. I hate your nose. Your jawline's terrible. like, dude, you're a horrible person. You're not a person of integrity. If I just kept bashing you to the point to where I found something that was in you, you'd react.
Yeah.
And so my goal in getting people to see that is that you got to understand that no, you can actually be unoffendable, unmovable from your happiness state if there's no insecurity in there. Or pride, which I believe pride is just masking insecurity. I really do. So deep down, if you called me, when I was a kid, you watched my TEDx talk. If they would have called me a tall kid, I wouldn't have been offended by that. That wouldn't have made me feel rejected.
Right.
When they called me a black kid that quote unquote talked and act white, that hurt because I felt that. I saw myself that way. And so it hurt, and so the way that you see yourself is the way that you see the world. If I were to see myself as someone who was exactly the way I was supposed to be, with the gifts, the talents, the personality, the voice, everything, I would hear those same remarks, but I would see it differently in the world. So rather than see rejection, you know what I would see? I would see wholeness. I would see their projection. And so that's the whole concept. So I always tell people in arguments, when you're mad, that you always can tell if you have internal insecurities when you blame other people for your behavior. They made me do this. They did this. They pushed me to do this. Like, no one can push you to do anything. They can aggravate a pain point within you, but you have to be self-aware enough and whole and healed enough to be able to see differently.
I love it, man. That makes a lot of sense. And I know you just touched on it, but I love the third grade story. So I have to ask you about that, which I'm sure you've told so many times. But if you could go back and tell us and how you changed your whole persona just to fit in and fake it till you make it. Tell us about that experience.
So I'm in the third grade. My mother notices that I'm in accelerated learning classes, or she puts me in accelerated learning classes because I was a smart kid. Where I'm from, Jackson, Michigan, which is about an hour and a half west of Detroit, I was one of 2 Black students in an all-white class. And there was nothing wrong with this. It wasn't like I was getting picked on. It actually worked in my favor. I was one of the smartest kids in the class. People cheated off my test. I was charismatic. They laughed at my jokes. They nicknamed me Goon because I was like this big, goofy, goony looking guy. And I thought, I was in third grade, dude. So I thought that since they liked me, everyone in the school must like me, right? Like I must be like the best thing ever. And so I go to a bathroom break with the nasty wooden bathroom pass. Did you used to have those?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's gross. I don't know why we did that. So I've got this bathroom pass and I'm coming back from bathroom break and I see this group of Black students circled together and they're just like cracking jokes. And so I'm like, man, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to get in on this. So I walk over to the group. I'm like, what's so funny? Nobody answers. And I'm like, man, I'm tall. I was always the tallest kid in school. I'm like, I know y'all see me, y'all hear me. So I spoke up. I'm like, what y'all over there laughing about? And before I could even finish that sentence, one of the kids turned towards me and said, "Yours was funny, white boy." And they all started cracking up laughing. And I walked away feeling rejected. I knew they weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at me. But I was confused. I did not know what that meant. Yeah. So I literally started asking people in my class, like, hey, why did these group of students call me a Black kid or a white boy when I'm clearly Black? And that's when I learned that I was known in our school as the Black kid that, quote unquote, talks and acts white. Okay. And what that made me feel was who I was authentically wasn't enough to be liked or loved by other people. And that's important because rejection makes us feel that way. I know sales executives who experience rejection, don't meet quota, and now they feel like who they are isn't enough to be liked or loved by other people. I've seen workplace gatherings where everybody's going out for drinks after work, and then one or two people don't get invited, and then they like, who I am authentically isn't enough to be liked or loved by others. And because we have such a true, deep desire to be loved and accepted, what do we do to get it? We then conform. Oh, you know what? They didn't invite me because I'm not a party animal and they probably think that I'm boring to hang around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my normal energy and demeanor and I'm going to act crazy. I'm going to be the drunkest person at the party. And so what I did in that moment is I said, okay, Black people, they don't like me. I want them to like me. I want them to love me. I want them to accept me. So I'm going to change everything about myself to fit in with them. I changed the way that I talked. I changed the way that I walked. I changed the music I listened to. I started skipping school, selling drugs, trying to have sex with girls by the time I got to the 7th grade, right? I did everything to fit in with this minority community. And the crazy thing is that it worked. They embraced me. I got street cred. They named me a different type of goon because I was like street goon at the time.
Damn.
But the problem is that deep down inside, I knew it wasn't me who they were accepting. It was who I was pretending to be, which is dangerous because I always tell people this. I'd rather be real and be rejected than be fake and be accepted. Because if I'm fake and you accept me, I got to keep up that act for the duration of the relationship.
Yeah.
But if I'm real and you reject me, I can keep moving on.
Yeah.
So I'd rather deal with that. But at the time, I was so insecure, I had such a deep need to be liked and loved, probably had father issues, whatever. And so I clung to it and I lost myself and I ruined a large part of my life and I ruined a lot of other people's lives, all because I just wanted to fit in and be embraced. That's the power of rejection.
That is crazy, man. And you kept it up for such a long time too. And like you said, you had to carry that forever, it seemed like, which is not easy to do. I did want to ask you.
Pause right there. Imagine. I know it's your podcast.
No, go ahead.
But I don't, this is new stuff for you. This one won't be on anybody else's podcast.
I like it, man. Drop it here first.
Imagine your group of friends. Imagine going to your group of friends and being like, hey guys, I know we're cool and everything, but this actually isn't me. I actually don't like some of the things we do. I actually prefer to do this. Who would say that?
No one.
That's why it's so dangerous, because it traps a person in a relationship that they don't want, in situations that they don't want, in circumstances that they don't like, and they can't speak up because they know that it will undo years and years and years and years of investment that they put in to having those relationships, and then they got to go back to square one where they don't know who likes them again. It's like once you sit down at the lunch table with the kids and you don't feel like, hey, I don't have anybody to sit with. Who wants to just start over and go sit at the new table? Nobody. But that's what breaking free from rejection feels like. And I'm making that point because I know that my story is athletics, right? And then the minority divide, right? Or the racial divide in my community. But for other people, it might be something completely different. It might be parents who didn't accept you because you didn't make grades. So then you became Mr. or Mrs. Goody Two-Shoes. And now you don't want to even tell them that you don't even want to go to college. You want to do something else. And so you're miserable for years. And some people I know, listen, I'll tell you a secret. When I graduated from college, and then I'll let you ask all your questions. When I graduated from college, I worked at Central Michigan University in marketing and PR. And I remember leaving the day I put in my 2 weeks notice. You know, I let it when the office found out. I had 3 employees come up to me. These are people who were making at least twice, some of them way more than that, my salary as an entry-level employee. And they came to me and they had tears in their eyes and they said, "We wish we could do what you're doing. Like, we wish." And I'm like, dude, you can. You have the skill, you talent. But so they thought it was the insurance that was keeping them stuck. They thought it was the comfort of the check. It wasn't that. It was the courage to start from scratch and shoot for what they really wanted. And that's what they wish they had.
Yeah. But it's tough mentally to get to that place unless you're aware of what's going on, you know?
Unless you tell yourself the right story. We're all a product of the story we tell ourselves. So if I tell myself that, oh, I'm going to leave this job, lose my insurance, lose consistency paycheck, who wants to play out that story? I remember there was this quote. I wish I could remember who it was, but you might even know. I want to say Rodmacher might have been the last name of the quote. But this is the quote that I hung on to when I made that transition, and I broke out of a great environment that wasn't the best for me. Okay. In other words, I can make more impact doing what I do now than there. That's the only criteria. The workplace was great. Opportunities for advancement, great leader, productivity, high functioning team. But my fulfillment was not. I knew I could be making a bigger impact in the world. And the quote that I hung on to was this: the leap from where I am to where I want to be is so frightening. But for all that I may become, I will close my eyes and leap. I love that quote. It got me through because it's so scary. The jump is so frightening. But for all that I may become, listen, the story I'm telling myself is worth the risk.
And you know what? If you fail, you can always just get another job. I think sometimes people are just scared to bet on themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're definitely afraid to fail.
Yeah.
But it's the story we're telling ourselves about failure.
Yes.
You just told yourself a better story, right? If I failed, I'll get another job.
Right.
So I would do that, but that's not what people tell themselves. Literally, they'll go, "Oh no, and if I fail, I'll be homeless. I'm not gonna pay my rent, and I'm gonna be this, and people are gonna think less of me, and then I'm not gonna be able to go back to my old job because I left." And they stay stuck because they're telling themselves the wrong story. Tell yourself a different story. This is Think and Grow Rich. This is the law of attraction. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You're telling yourself a story, and you're living out the story you tell yourself. And as painful as that is, it's true.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll come back to all that, but let me switch to football for a second.
Go for it. I'm sorry. I just completely
No, I know. You're just getting started.
I'm sorry, everyone.
No, all good. Let's talk about Central Michigan for a second.
Yeah.
What made you want to go there? Like, what was it? Would you have any other offers from other schools? What was it about Central Michigan that drew you in?
That's a good question, man. I wanted to play football and basketball, so that was the decision maker for me. I was very torn in between. So I did have better offers, and I say better, right? I did have bigger school offers.
Okay.
In both sports individually, but not collectively. The closest one I had was Michigan State. Michigan State offered me a gray shirt for football, but and the basketball team was going to allow me to walk on. With the caveat that I still had to show my worth in the practice because they hadn't seen enough film or been to enough games to offer me like a secure spot.
Sure.
But I was going to eat that spot, man. I was gonna win that spot. Dude,
playing for Tom Izzo, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, what's funny? What's funny? I did a fundraising event. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was in downtown Lansing. 4 years later, Tom Izzo was there. Help drive traffic to the fundraiser.
Yeah.
He looks at me. He goes, "Hey, what's up, Stinson?" And I was like, "Dude, what? You remember my name?" He's like, "Oh yeah." The dude's a machine. He remembers everybody who he's ever recruited. So he's a machine. Anyways, yeah. So so I chose Central for that reason. My dad did play at Central. My mom went to Central. Okay. My dad knew one of the coaches there. So that kind of helped that he's like, these are great coaches. They had just come off a really good season. So that was good about them. The football team was good. The basketball team had potential. They were rebuilding. So I probably would have been a pillar player, would have got a lot of playing time early on. The problem is that I was scrawny when I came into college, like everyone is usually, and they thought they were going to redshirt me my freshman year for football. And because I was more known in basketball than I was football because I emerged so late, which is a whole nother story, right? Like I sat my whole junior year in college pretty much, which is like the dumbest thing that this coaching staff ever did in the face. It's like the dumbest coaching decision ever made of all time was to sit your freaking best player their entire junior year because our coach wanted to play seniors. We literally had picket signs at the games, put Stinson in. It was crazy. It was dramatic. Anyway, so I chose that because I felt like I could play both. And then when they found out that I was better at football than they thought I was going to be earlier, then they were like, about that basketball team, we have your scholarship. So unless basketball's playing your scholarship, And so, and we fought and it just didn't work. So yeah, that's kind of the story behind that.
Yeah, for sure. And for those that don't know, Central Michigan's had some dudes come through there like Antonio Brown. Eventually, Eric Fisher was the number one pick a little bit after you. But describe playing at Central Michigan, maybe with some of those guys or just in general, what it was like.
Yeah, man, I always tell people, man, Eric, this is the best way to describe playing with it is think of it this way. Eric Fisher was number one. He was an offensive tackle. I was a defensive end. He was number one because he was going against me every day.
You know what? You definitely made him better. How's that?
Oh, we got to get into that. That was actually something I really believe. I actually felt like I was better. And he deserves everything he got.
Sure.
But if you read my book, that's part of my story is I had to deal with that. But playing was my story of my playing career is probably different than other people's perspective. But I came in thinking I was like the best player on the team. I wanted to shatter all the records. Ryan Radcliffe, the quarterback, will tell you, and Dan Lefevre, they said, I guess I came in with like full shaded glasses. I don't think that I did. They said that I did. I was like, I did not come on with shaded glasses to the first day of practice, but they said that I did.
So you were feeling yourself a little bit when you got there. I was feeling
myself, man. I was a whole different person, and I was a bad guy. So I would never do that now. Ego's way more out the way.
Sure.
But yeah, so I was super prideful and super competitive. I was taught wrong. So my whole freshman year, I was getting like murdered. Like I was taught that you're supposed to tackle with your head sideways, which is is a terrible way to tackle because it looks like you're afraid of contact.
Uh-huh.
So for the first year, people were like, man, this dude is soft. He's like afraid of contact. I'm like, and nobody ever told me why. I thought I just need to hit harder. So I was just like hitting harder like this. And they were like, he's so afraid, right? Stick your face in there. I'm like, why would I do that? I don't want no concussion.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I sat down with my roommate, this was after I came back from surgery. So this would have been, my red shirt sophomore year or whatever. And so I came back from back surgery and I'm talking to my roommate and I'm like, bro, why is everyone saying I'm soft? Like, I'm not scared of nobody, And he was like, can I see your helmet? And I was like, yeah, he gave me his helmet. And he was like, listen, you see my helmet? You see all these scratches on my helmet? His is like all bruised up, marked up. He's like, you see your helmet, bro? It's clean. It's smooth, right? And then he goes and he grabs the punter's helmet. He's like, you see how your helmet looks the same as the punter's? I was like, that's it. So I went out that day of practice, literally. I'm like, so all I gotta do is like just ram somebody in my head. Oh, okay. So I go and I'm like, and they're like, yes, that's what I'm talking about, man. And so it started to pick up really fast. And I started to go from, I'm just a big guy who we travel because number one, he looks intimidating, come off the bus. Number two, he's super duper fast and can rush the passer on third downs, to like, now this dude is our starter. He's making plays. He's our stability. And that was it. Our coaching staff underneath Butch Jones was very like a mental mind gym. The way that he led as a coach was all mind games. Okay. Right. For instance, he would literally, he's a master. I don't even know if I should be telling his secrets, but he would get the best film from all of the competitors. So he would find the weaknesses of our team and compare it. So if we know we have a mismatch of the tackle or a mismatch for a receiver, he would literally get their best clips and he would show them to us and be like, look at what's going to happen to you. This guy's going to destroy you. Look at what he's doing, driving him into the ground. Look at this. This is what he's going to drive your face into the ground, Stinson, the whole time. Your dad's going to be there. Your mom's going to be there. And they're all going to watch you get your butt kicked and you're going to be on national television. Right. And he would do that. He would print off pictures of the team. He would find tweets that the team put about like, hey, we're getting ready to smack Central. And he would print it off and put it on our locker.
Bulletin board material.
Yeah. And he'd be like, this is what they're saying about you. You're going to let them say this about you. You're going to let them come up in your house and talk about this. They're going to tweet about you. He would just, and you would believe it. You're like, no way is this about to happen. So you're motivated. You're running to practice. And it was brilliant because most teams struggle because of the practice squad, not because of the starters. People think it's because of the starters, but it's more times because the starters are the ones who you see the most on the field and they make the most mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's usually because they're playing so much and that the second string is not giving them a breather. But that's the biggest difference between major D1s and smaller D1s is they have a larger depth. So everyone has an Antonio Brown, but they got three of them.
Right.
We got two or one, And so that was the climate and the mindset of like, here's how you achieve at a high level by raising the stakes, by being extreme. And if you watch the documentary from Michael Jordan, he does some of the same things. And so that was what the culture was like. And then obviously, as we won the MAC championship, got ranked number 23rd in the nation, here comes the media. Dan Lefevre's being compared to Tim Tebow at the time. Antonio Brown's obviously a good draft pick. We had a couple of other NFL guys like Frank Zombo, and a couple of receivers that, everyone was talking about. They were in the news. So there was a lot of attention around CMU. So we got to benefit that and see what it's like to have the world's attention on you in a particular matter. And yeah, so that's kind of what the culture was like, man.
Nice. One quick question about just the schools in general. For like, I didn't grow up in Michigan. I'm a California guy. But as far as like the rivalries go, I kind of read online, Western Michigan is not that far from Central Michigan, maybe a couple hour drive or something like that. And Eastern Michigan's also there. So is Western Michigan Central's biggest rival?
Yes, that's definitely the biggest rival because of the years of history. So there's a lot of there's even like news articles about how crazy it got. They had to like by the time I got there, Central Western weekend, I mean, they were bringing like the state troopers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They were like, we're not playing. Nobody's setting cars on fire. Nobody's, getting in fights. We're policing all of this. So yeah, they're our biggest rivals.
Gotcha. Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Not to bring the mood down too much, but I did want to get into the meat of your story. When things started to go south for you and the depression of not playing football after you'd done playing, you had the injuries and everything, and eventually the suicide attempts and all that stuff. Just take us through that if you could, whatever you're willing to share on that.
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version. I come back from back surgery. Number one, the coaches were like, you shouldn't. They were going to allow me to keep my scholarship, come around football whenever I want. So I had the golden ticket. I get academics paid for, and I can come around football because they value my leadership and my voice. But sports was my identity. It was who I was, not what I did. So I couldn't let it go. So I begged them. They allowed me to sign a liability waiver so that they would not be liable for my injury or death after back surgery. I was not supposed to walk more than a mile within the first 6 months of my surgery. I was starting in 3 to 6. Okay. In 3, I was like competing for a starting spot, but it was mine, right? 6, I earned it, right? Like it was like, there's no. So I did so at a cost to my physical, emotional, mental health. I had opioid pills that they had prescribed to me that I was taking to numb my pain to play football. I was getting epidural shots in my back. I was manipulating the healthcare system, getting multiple epidural shots in my back. I was getting nerve killings, acupuncture, chiropractic work. If I didn't say nerve killings, all to numb the pain to continue to play the game of football. And because I had to pay for these medical procedures out of pocket, because football couldn't cover it, that would make them liable for the injury. My personal insurance couldn't cover it because I had HMO, and they only selected from a certain group of doctors. And CMU is in the middle of nowhere, so they didn't accept doctors. So I played for it out of pocket. I'm from the streets. When we see medical bills that we can't afford, we sell drugs to pay them or just not pay them at all.
Right.
And so I started selling drugs, and that was my life literally in the summary for 2 years was wow. I was playing football, traveling, coming to classes, in between classes, I was selling drugs, driving around the state of Michigan, making transactions, different types of drugs, and that, and playing and practices and sleeping. And that was just my life. It was blurry. Right. And then it got to the point where I was like the season before, I had started to miss a lot of games because of just spasms and stuff. Going into my senior year, I had a really bad back spasm, and they had to take me to the hospital, and they gave me pain steroid pills, right? Pain, not performance enhancers. And I took one, and then I saved them until I could go like get an MRI or whatever, see what was going on. And then I would take them during the game. And for practices. What that did is it was so strong that it would make my blood thin to the point where every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed. Coaches saw that something was wrong. They kicked me off the team. Okay. They said, we don't know what you're doing, but we don't want you to hurt yourself. We don't want to get in trouble. So we got to let you go. I got mad. I felt like they quit on me. I felt like they gave up on me. And I probably flipped something over and I left. And I'm mad. Then I had to face this depression because I had, I don't know a better word, but pissed away my education and wasted my education.
Yeah.
I knew I could be successful at something else. I didn't know that I could be fulfilled by something else. So that created this. Plus, remember the story of childhood rejection. Who I am authentically isn't enough to be liked or loved by other people. So without sports, nobody's going to really care or like me.
Yeah.
And so that starts the depression thoughts, thinking about not wanting to be here. Those thoughts grow and grow and grow because I'm not talking about them. I'm not speaking up about them. It's taboo. I'm an athlete. I'm not supposed to, quote unquote, show weakness. And my girlfriend, who I was dating for 4.5 years and planning to marry, left me and got engaged to another man because I was no longer going to the NFL.
Oh, wow.
So that validated that no one really cared about me. Plus, my phone wasn't ringing because I had stopped selling drugs. Plus, my phone wasn't ringing because I wasn't playing sports and coaches weren't calling me. People weren't seeing me at practice. I wasn't involved. So I'm like, nobody cares about me, dude. And that's when I started to make attempts, right? Started with trying to overdose on pills, mixing pills with alcohol, living recklessly, driving. Ultimately, these attempts led me to a psychiatric care facility in Detroit, Michigan. Okay. When I was there, I found my faith. I found hope. I did some inner healing, and I literally came out of that place like Clark Kent becomes Superman. Okay. And now I'm on this journey to figure out what is my purpose beyond sports, because I just survived this. I'm still here. I'm alive for a reason. I always knew I had this desire and this, what I believe a call to speak was, but I was deeply insecure to speak in front of people. I couldn't put two sentences together. I was so insecure. I used to leave the room during icebreakers so that people would skip me and I wouldn't have to speak in front of people.
Damn.
Yeah. And I know it's like, you're so different now. I know. And so instead of like pursuing speaking the first year, I, got my degree in integrated public relations, pursued that, was successful in that. And then ultimately got my first speaking opportunities from doing a marketing consultation from an invitation from a former intern that I had. And then that kind of began the journey of speaking.
Wow. That is definitely quite the journey. And you've done a lot since then. That's for sure. Yeah. There's a bunch of principles and quotes that I like from some of your speeches. First one is that you said was, in order to fully be loved, you have to be fully known, which is kind of spreading that awareness and asking for help. Everyone's afraid to ask for help or what it's going to look like when you ask for help, but they don't realize how supportive people really will be if you do. So maybe you could speak to that about being known when you have problems.
Yeah, the only way to be, we all have a need to be fully loved. The only way for us to be fully loved is for us to be fully known, because you can't really love me if you don't really know me. So that means it's on me to make sure that I'm fully known, that you know about me. So that way, when you say you love me, I know you really do because you know me. Okay.
Yeah.
The problem is that we often aren't that vulnerable to show people who we really are. So we can't experience that fullness of love. Here's how that is important in a mental health aspect. And I always tell people this, that vulnerability is literally like a Batman signal for love. The more vulnerable you are, it sends a signal that you need love to rush in. When I was in that depressive state as an athlete, I was kind of putting hints out there, little bitty vulnerability, that I was struggling with depression. I would say, like, for every dark night, there's a brighter day, or really had a tough day today, or like something like that. And I would get people that would be like, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But really, I was suicidal, and I wanted somebody to pick up the phone, call me, and take interest in me. So when they didn't, you know what I did? I said, they don't really love me. But then when I started to model vulnerability, it was different. So the way that somebody responds to someone who says, hey, I'm having thoughts about harming myself or harming others, is much different than how they respond if they say, for every dark night, there's a brighter day. Vulnerability attracts that in. Being fully known brings in the fullness of love. Does that make sense? Yeah. And the reason why people are afraid of this is because the opposite is also true, or the opposite is also possible, that I can be fully vulnerable and be more rejected. And that's the highest form of rejection. And that's why there's no hurt like marriage hurt, dating hurt, religious hurt, because these are the places where you're supposed to be the most known and the most loved. And when you're not, what that does is tell me, see, you knew all of me and you still didn't like me. So clearly I'm not worthy of love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a perfect example. I got divorced actually a couple of years ago, and I was so afraid to tell people about it because it was either what it looked like, the optics, or that I quote unquote failed a marriage, whatever it is, but I totally underestimated how my circle would come up and help me, you know what I mean? Or be there to listen, you know what I mean? Or actually, because I was pretty reserved and private about my life a little bit, at least the marriage stuff. And when I finally started to tell people, just like you're saying, they came in and they helped.
Yep, exactly. So you know what it's like. And it's if you wouldn't have held that, if you would have withheld that, you would have made up a whole bunch of scenarios in your head about how people felt about you.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you were just vulnerable, like, hey, like, imagine if, I don't know what you said, but imagine if you were like, man, y'all, I went through this divorce. I've been so embarrassed to say it because I didn't know what y'all would think about me because of this. Dude, what? We love you. Yeah. But it's a risk, man, because they could be like, you did what, dude? Why would you do, we loved her, like, and then that hurts. So you take that risk, but the reward is so worth the risk.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, you gave a keynote speech to a school and you called it Operation Authenticity. And you talked about how fake people like on social media or how, and how to properly process rejection. So maybe talk to us. What do you
Dude, how did you find that?
I do my research, man.
Dude, is that available?
I heard it. No,
top secret.
No, I heard it on another interview you did.
Oh,
I heard you talking about it. I do my research, man.
Hey, man, that pays off big time.
Yeah.
Most people, that's all they get from me. Is the athlete transition framework, the story, Operation Authenticity. Yeah, it was such a bold, what do you call it? Goal, objective. That if everyone could just stop pretending, we all would be so much better off.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this thing, and I did that for a high school.
Okay.
But a lot of people took value from it. But my goal and why, because I noticed that a lot of the depression, a lot of the fights in school, a lot of the disciplinary issues are all because nobody's really being real. Like even like take something like sitting at a lunch table. I know that there's people at the lunch table who don't want someone sitting alone. But because they're not being authentic and expressing them true selves, they won't let their group of friends know that. Because then I risk being the outsider.
Right.
But if everyone would stop if everyone would stop faking like there's an in crowd and an out crowd and realize that there's no in or out crowd, everybody's got a crowd. Like everybody has somebody in this school they can connect to. And it's okay if none of us are friends. Or none of us are best friends, because we can all still be nice but nobody's really talking like that. We all trying to jockey for position and get value because we feel like we're better than or dressed better than or have more friends than the other person. And so Operation Authenticity was bringing us back to self. It's like Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. Let's get back to our authentic selves, our authentic friends, our authentic feelings. Let's actually build relationships with the people who align with that. Let's let go of the relationships who are not, because that's going to force them to rethink, because the only reason why they're on top is because you're allowing them to be the jerk. So let's all Operation Authenticity, and let's see if this starts to change the culture of our school.
Especially in high school, man, because that's the most tense, judgy place. Yeah.
It's not.
But it's made that way. Yeah.
We say that as adults.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people, and it's so funny, dude. You know the funniest thing? I love when people watch my TEDx talk and they tell me, they reach out to me, adults, and they say, man, that's good. Our youth really need to hear that. And I'm like, no, you needed to hear that message. That's why you messaged me.
For sure.
I don't say that, but I know that.
Right.
They're just afraid to admit that.
Sure.
Because that same scenario that I just described to you, it exists in corporate meeting rooms.
Yeah.
How many times do we have the meeting after the meeting? Because nobody's being authentic in the meeting.
It's a great point.
So if we ran authentic Operation Authenticity in the corporate culture, could it change the culture?
It definitely
absolutely would. This is how Lencioni made his living. 5 dysfunctions of a team. Let's get the dysfunction out the way. Let's get back to authentic. And I guarantee you it'll fix the issues.
I agree, man. Let's talk about your book, Who Am I After Sports, an Athlete's Roadmap to Discover New Purpose in Life Fulfilled. I saw you had a foreword by Chris Broussard. That's a big get, man. Fox Sports Radio, ESPN guy.
I did, man.
That's
and the
cool.
thing is, he actually wrote it too. I didn't write it, and he said, go ahead. Which speaks to his character, his credit. I really appreciate that. I had met him through his organization, the King Movement.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote it. I'll give you the overview of the book.
Yeah.
I got to this place in my life where I realized that I would not trade my current life for my former life as an athlete. I started to recognize that that was not true in my peers, that they were living their current life as if it's second best to their former life as an athlete. That there's a term in sports called glory days that is essentially saying my best days are behind me and not in front of me. And I was like, well, that's no way to live, downhill from here. And my best days were in front of me, not behind me. And I developed this belief that I don't care if you were Michael Jordan, your best days are always in front of you, never behind you. And when you feel like it's downhill from here, you have mental health challenges. You turn to alcohol and drugs to deal with that discomfort. And so I asked myself, what did I do that got me to this place? And I sat down and I prayed about it and all this stuff. And I started to write down, first I did this, and second I did this. And that's where I came up with the core of the book, which is the Athlete's Transition Roadmap that talks about the 5 phases of transition. So whether you're a former athlete or not, if you are in a season of transition, these are usually the phases that you go through. Okay. In fact, my publisher and my book launch team was like, Darryll, pause, make the book about transition, make more examples that apply to everybody. New York Times bestseller. And I was like, no, I want this to be for an athlete. It's my experience. And I know high athletic identity athletes, or strong is the correct term, strong athletic identity athletes would not read a general book about transition. They need to feel like it's just for them. So I didn't want to leave them behind. So the 5 phases are this, okay? There's accept, believe, discover, pursue, persist, okay? The acceptance phase is all about closing the last chapter. It's the point where you're no longer sending out the demo reel and you truly have come to a place where you know that chapter's closed. Most athletes think they're there because of age. They're not there because of age. They're there because of language. If you get around, I've met 50-year-old former athletes who will literally start bragging about how good they were. And I'm like, you haven't mastered that phase yet.
No, that's often where people are stuck. Phase 1, man, accepting that you're not playing anymore.
And the thing that I so desperately want people to understand is that, okay, if we have 100% capacity in life, if that belief is taking up 20% of our capacity, we're not operating at our full potential, which means we're impacting less people. And there's a ripple effect, which means we're not impacting the people we can impact, which means like they're not impacting the people that they would impact if we were who we were. And it's a bad scenario. So I'm trying to increase the urgency to be like, hey, let me work through this internally to get this 20% of resistance out of my life. So I got to come to a place in acceptance, right? This is the 5 stages of grief, fast tracked.
Okay.
Then it's belief. Okay, now that I know that it's over, I have to truly believe, not like kind of believe. I have to truly believe that my best days are in front of me and not behind me. It's all mindset work. Okay. And one of the things that's going to help me is when I stop idolizing the career of sports. Okay. And there's some other strategies. Okay.
Sure.
The third one is discover. It's probably everyone's favorite phase. This is where everyone wants to start, is what's next. So I spent about 5 years researching every major world religion, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life, Simon Sinek's Why, leadership retreats, John Maxwell's Success, and everything. And I got to this place where I'm like, man, I finally feel like I have a purpose statement about my life that's unique to me. And I believe everyone should have it. It should be as unique as your fingerprint. So this is 22 purpose discovery questions to help you find your highest, most authentic purpose. Okay? Because purpose is why you do it, not what you do. Okay. What you do is an expression of your purpose, but it's not the sole purpose. Okay. I put some of this in the TEDx talk, my second one. The next phase is, now that I've discovered it, I have to go after it. I have to pursue it. This is all stuff a lot of athletes know. And what we do well is we turn on the beast. This is all the elite athletes, the high performance habits.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the 5th phase is persistence. Okay. And these are not linear, or sequential or chronological. They are just phases. Okay. Sometimes you go in and out some, and there's degrees to which you master it. But in the persistence phase, is all about how to keep going when the going gets tough. This is where a lot of the mental health stuff comes on. And I talk about my Gridiron Journal and give people some practical tips on how they can develop a system of self-care that supports the system of success that they probably already have as a former athlete.
Gotcha. So that kind of leads into Second Chance Athletes, which is the company you run, secondchanceathletes.com. If you want to check it out. What is that along those same lines as the book, or what are you guys doing at Second Chance Athletes?
We give athletes a second chance to succeed in life without the demands of sports through coaching, community, courses, and educational scholarships.
Nice. That's awesome.
Shortest answer all day.
Like, wait a minute. I was like,
I can see the time getting close to the end, man. I know how to land the plane.
And I want to make sure You've done this before. I wanted to make sure I got all my questions in. Okay, so beyond that, and of course, anybody, do you work with just athletes only? Or
no, not at all.
Okay.
I just tend to attract athletes. And
sure.
really, it's not athletes, it's high achievers. You know?
Yeah.
I don't got time to make you want it, man. But if you want it, I can help you.
I like that. Do you have any speeches coming up or any keynotes or anything like that?
A ton. So I'm doing my mental health speech. I'm doing, it's called You're Enough, a game-changing mental health belief that changes everything. The thesis is that we delay our internal happiness until we achieve something. And I believe that decision can start today. You're enough now with or without the success. You're enough now with or without the gold medal. Okay. So that's one that's really huge. I'm doing some Revive to Thrive motivational ones coming out of the pandemic. And then I've got Unleash the Leader Within, doing a couple of colleges ones with that. And is there any other one that's happening somewhere? I'm doing a 2-day workshop, mental health workshop. So that's good. How to scale your business without sacrificing health or health.
Okay. Right? I was going to ask you, how do you decide which speeches to do when?
That's a good question. So the market determines the speech, right? Because the quickest way to go out of business is to try to sell people great ideas. The fastest way to stay in business is to sell people what they already want. So I've learned how to sell people what they want, give them what they need. Okay. So they determine it. So it's all about asking questions and figuring out what's really going on in their business or their organization to figure out how can you provide a solution to that problem. Okay. From there, I take that and I say, okay, here's the problem. I believe from my experience, here's the solution. And now I start to build. Okay, if this is the solution, what's step one? That becomes point one. What's step two? And then what's step three? And then you got a 3-point message.
I like it. Okay, I will definitely be on the lookout for all that. Where can everybody reach out to you if they want to work with you or check out all your stuff or any of that?
Hit me up at Stinson Speaks on social. You can shoot me an email. You can drop it in the notes. And if there's anything I can do to be of value, just let me know. Okay. Awesome, man. Appreciate it. I feel like I need a part two, but I know you're not busy. Okay, man, let's do it. I'll do part two, man.
Yeah. Maybe down the road or something like that. Do you have any speeches out in California at all? Any engagements out here?
Do I have one in Cali? I don't think I have one in Cali this fall.
Okay.
But I might be out in Cali though.
Okay.
I've got a lot of people. Where are you at?
I'm in Orange County, so Southern California.
Okay, yeah. I've got people in that area.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to. I need to just come and spend like 3 to 4 weeks and just see everybody.
You do.
You know? But yeah, I'll definitely mental note. I'll hit you up when I'm that way. Yeah, and David Meltzer's out there too, and that's one of my mentors. So.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
He does pop-ups and meetups sometimes. So yeah.
Okay.
Make it happen.
Sounds great. Well, Darryll, thank you very much, man. Appreciate your stories and everything, and a lot of great insights. So I'm glad to have you on the show, and we'll definitely talk to you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed that and really got something out of that. I think he definitely dropped some knowledge on you guys and some good life lessons in there about rejection and about it's really not about you. It's about the other people that are projecting on you. So some good lessons to live by for sure. Hope you guys really like the information there. And if you want to reach out to Darryll, please do. You can definitely find his stuff at secondchanceathletes.com. He doesn't just work with athletes. He works with all kinds of people. So corporate CEOs and business coaches and all kinds of stuff. So please check that out. My thanks to Darryll on that. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. On YouTube, type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find us there. If you haven't already and you like to watch the interviews and see everything, hear us talk and see the conversation, you can subscribe there on YouTube. And you can also hit the bell notification to get notified every time there's a new episode, which we drop on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So please check that out. If you want to listen to it, just the audio side, or on Apple Podcast, if you could, I know I say it every episode, but if you're new, scroll down, find those 5 stars. If you could, hit the 5-star. We'd love those reviews. It helps us, the show grow, give us a little more exposure, and it's the least you could do for the content I'm providing for free. For now. Just kidding. We'll see. And on Spotify, we're there too. We're also on Pandora. We're on Google Play. We're on Amazon Music. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. I appreciate it. I will see you guys soon for another great episode. Have a good one.